So we're going to dive in because we definitely hit serious hot topics. And it was cute because you're like, how filtered are we going to be? I'm like, none. There's no filter on this show. And I absolutely love that. So Damien, I love your last name too. I just asked you how to say it. I'm French, so my name does not look like how it's spelled. So are you French or Italian, or what is that?
French, the majority French, yeah. Okay, French and Spanish.
Two Frenchies. Okay, we got two Frenchies on here. I love that. I love it. Do you know any French?
We're Cajun French.
Cajun French. Okay, yeah. I learned a little Cajun French when I was in Haiti. I did a mission trip in Haiti, and I caught on really quick. Like, you catch on really quick when that's all they speak, and you're learning. But then I've been learning French for almost over a year, but I don't speak it to somebody. So I can't speak it, but I definitely understand it. Like, I can read it really well. And so now it's just that next step. But
my grandfather, he's 93, and all of his siblings are still alive. They're all in their 90s. It's really funny to hear them talk to each other because, as you know, Cajun French is a really broken dialect of French, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like the slang version of French, and it's pretty funny to hear them talk to each other.
I actually like it a lot. I think it's really cool, and it's kind of more my style probably would be that I try to be really, really sweet French type of accent, but the Cajun accent's much easier. Like, you can just be choppy and it sounds fabulous. Like, you're like, let's do it. Okay, so yesterday we were talking and we've been connected. It's so interesting how people are connected in so many ways. We have a lot in common, and I didn't even know that. You've been in the multi-level marketing industry. Obviously that's my platform and space too for many years. You've done really well. You've got friends, same friends, mutual friends, but you also have battled and recovered from alcohol. Definitely we share that story. I mean, mine was a year and a half ago, and definitely I fell on my face. So we can talk about kind of your journey there. You also were recognized by President Trump in the State of the Union, which is freaking insane and incredible because of your organization and things you do. And we're going to talk about that too. So for our listeners and our audience, let's just give a little background on you. Where do you come from? Obviously you're French, there's some Cajun in there, but where do you come from? How did you get into the entrepreneurial space? Because this is what this show is about. Like, we want to hear the hustlers' stories, the grit, the real grit.
Oh, absolutely. Grit is what I definitely... I would say this, that grit defines me. There's no doubt about that. And what I can say is, growing up from New Orleans, Louisiana, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, a little town about 10 minutes from the French Quarter called Harvey. And it's right next to the military installment there. But I grew up my entire life in New Orleans. I had that hustler mentality from a very young age. I always knew that I did not want a job. I always knew that was
unemployable, right? What I call it. I'm like, I'm not employable.
Yeah. So I always knew that there was more to life than a job. Really my entrepreneurial journey started off very young. I would go, I don't know if you'd call this an entrepreneur, I guess possibly. So there was a restaurant, one of the top restaurants in the world, actually. It's called Galatoire's. And Galatoire's is a place that they don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States, or you could be whoever, just regular business owner or whoever, and you don't get priority there. You have to stand in line to get in. There's no reservations. So early on, I made friends with the maitre d' there and had a pretty unique little situation where when all of these rich folks, like, give you one example, the Manning family, Peyton Manning and his brother Eli and his father, Archie Manning, who are really very, very well respected people in New Orleans, they would always call the restaurant, say, who do you have that can stand in line for us? And here was 13, 14-year-old Damien that would go stand in line for that $150 back in the day, just to get ahead. And I could remember as early, actually even earlier than that, in like middle school, I would go to Sam's Club and buy like jars of lemon heads, and I'd go to school and I would undercut the candy store. And I would, more kids were buying candy from me than they were the actual store. So, the school shut that down pretty quick. But I think it just, I saw how hard my mom worked. And my mother's my inspiration. There's no doubt about her and my grandfather, no doubt about that. I mean, she worked 2 jobs, single mom. We had we were about as poor could be growing up, but she made it. She made it happen. And I just watched her, kill herself to put me through school and to keep me without handcuffs around my wrist, which we'll talk about here in the future in a little bit. But yeah, so I just saw how hard mom was working, and I just remember saying that there's got to be more life than this. All she spends her life at work. And I respected what she did, but I just knew that I wanted more, and I wanted something different than what we were taught, because, I come from very humble beginnings, and those humble beginnings are all, there's always some lessons that you learn from those humble beginnings. And the things that I learned is that there was a much easier way, and that there was a different way. And I was going to be the person in my family who did it differently than everybody else. So I think it was just early on, just seeing mom just bust her butt just to put food on the table. I wanted more than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know my mom, she was always working when we were young. She got hurt, so she was on disability. So the story of her, when she was working, she was, kind of a hustler. She liked the sales, she was in sales, but she got hurt because because it was the 80s, late 80s, everyone was broke. And she took on a job working in like medical health care, and she tried to lift somebody, and the other person let go, and she wrecked her back, which led to pain pills and led to addiction. I mean, and then this, when you're in pain, and that was when the Loratabs or whatever it was coming out. I mean, it was Loratab after Loratab after Loratab, and it wasn't even working, and so she was battling pain and pills, and it was this vicious cycle that just kept getting, worse, because then you're addicted to the pain meds, and then you get sick with other things, they wreck your body. And so she really had to battle those things. And so as a kid, we were in those modes too, where we were watching mom, she's in pain, she's dealing with all this stuff, she could no longer work. We were like, I was raising my brother many times because she liked to go down the street, She definitely went down the street. I mean, that was the lifestyle, though. We lived in a small town, and there was more bars than restaurants or gas stations. Like, that's what you did. And so I definitely understand the mentality. As kids, we're like, well, we're going to make it. We're going to make it work because we want to buy those shoes. We're looking at it like, I'm going to hustle to get this because that's what you know how to do. You're like, well, I want this. So what do? I got to go to work. And so you were natural born hustlers. So, okay, New Orleans, you were growing up. What happened? Where did you go after like high school? What was the plan, and what kind of went like this?
At the age of 18, I didn't really have a drug problem. I had, there was something that happened when I was really younger, an experience that I had, a sexual experience that just really, kind of jaded me a whole lot. And I didn't start to deal with that problem until I could remember, well, let's just say this much. I remember the first time I took a sip of alcohol and the first time I got drunk, and it was just like the best feeling in the world. And then like everything went away, and I knew right away that was the solution to my problems, right? Uh-huh. So I've always been what was called a binge user. I never was a daily user of anything, ever. Because I've seen other people do that. I was able to justify myself how I was not like them because I didn't do it every day. But in my senior year, I happened to give a friend of mine something called GHB, and I was actually the first person in the whole city of New Orleans to ever be arrested for that. And it was a really big deal because at the time it was legal. It was on shelves in health food stores, and it was given to me by a New Orleans Saints football player. I was dating a cheerleader in my senior year that was on the Saints cheerleading staff, and so was he. And of course, I looked up to him because he was on the Saints team, and he was like, you want to? I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said, but he's.
I can imagine.
Yeah, do you want to feel amazing? Let's just say that much. You want to have a full body orgasm all day long, drink this stuff right here. It's really good for you. It helps you with sleep, and it helps your muscles grow. I'm like, oh, who wouldn't do that? but he didn't tell me not to mix it with alcohol, and he didn't tell me not to, how much to use. And the first day I got it, one of my friends legitimately died. He died, and he was rescued, but he was dead on. He was DOA when the police got there, and they were able to resuscitate him and save him. But long story short, they didn't even know what the stuff was that I had, because again, it was in health food stores, and at the time they didn't even put me in handcuffs for probably 2 to 3 hours while they were taking care of him, and then all of a sudden they found out that the version that I had was a Schedule 3 narcotic. So at that stage of my life, I was faced with some really tough decisions, and those tough decisions were I had to. My grandfather on my father's side was a judge most of my life. So he told me that if I put myself into a drug rehabilitation center, then they wouldn't give me time, because the kid's family that I gave it to was a very influential family, like my daddy's side of the family was. So, they wanted to see me fry. They wanted me to suffer some consequences, and I understand that. So instead of me going to prison, instead of me going to jail or anything like that, and instead of me going to, explore my collegiate football career, I went into a drug rehabilitation center in Lafayette, Louisiana. And that's where actually I learned a lot about drugs. Yeah.
So what was the direction then?
Well, I got out. The scholarship thing was off the table. When you are in the news for any type of drug-related situation, they don't care what kind of an athlete you are. There's usually some kind of underlying issues. So for me, I had to go prove myself. I went to Coach Stokely over at USL at the time. It was University of Southwestern Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. And they switched now. They're University of Louisiana at Lafayette. So long story short, I talked my way onto the football team. Coach allowed me to walk on. I made the team. And in that first year, I was called a prop. For anybody who's really into sports or collegiate sports, they know what I'm talking about. But it's kind of like a red shirt where you got to sit out for a whole year. Yep. Mine was due to grades. I never was a good student ever. As a matter of fact, I was probably a D- student, maybe a D+. But it was just, I always looked at the school like, how are these people going to teach me how to do what I want to do when they make $40,000 a year? That was always in the back of my head. Like, how am I going to listen to somebody who's teaching me business at a collegiate level who's never owned a business? And so I always thought I was smarter than the teachers. But anyway, that first year, it was a lot of spare time. I was able to practice with the team. I was able to work out with the team, do all that stuff. And in that first period of time, I was actually living in a halfway house. So I moved out of the drug treatment facility into a halfway house. And while I was in the halfway house, actually, I got kicked out of the halfway house because I started sneaking out in the middle of the night, going to football parties and, all this stuff. It was really hard to do while you were there and just watching everybody else have fun. I had to go home every night at a certain time. And, and I knew back then, or at least I thought back then, I didn't have any issues. I was like, I hardly used any drugs, actually. It was just a little marijuana, and I tried that GHB a couple of times. But other than that, at the time, I was able to rationalize in my head, man, I'm missing out on all this fun stuff, right? So I ended up getting kicked out. And luckily, for that first year and a half, I was able to maintain my position on the football team. But I then learned about entrepreneurship in the drug world. Let's just say that much. So a lot of what I learned, unfortunately, I didn't really know that I was an entrepreneur back then. I did. No one, like I said, I don't come from a family of very smart business people or people that have owned businesses before in the past. So for me, I kind of found out a lot about entrepreneurship through my illegal activities from college all the way to the time I was 35, actually. That's actually when when I was 27 was when I stopped uh, selling drugs. For me, it was not something that I'm proud of by any means today. But of course, we all know that the past doesn't determine who you are today, doesn't define who you are today. It's given me a unique life's experience that I can then now pour into other people that were in the same situation. So for me, it was, it started off really kind of small time stuff. And then eventually our group was crossing Mexican borders. 2007, the DEA ended up catching up with us. Let's just say that. By this time, I was living back in New Orleans. This is post-college. So from Lafayette, I quit the football team. I went pretty much all into making money, illegally. And then from there, moved back to New Orleans, connected with some of the guys that I grew up with, which we were all doing the same stuff. And in 2007, April 23rd, 2007. Now, let me take a step back, actually. So in 2004, I left New Orleans. I approached my grandfather and I told my grandfather and my dad, I said, if I don't leave here, I said, I'm probably going to spend the rest of my life in prison at some point. We knew the DEA and the feds were watching us. We were watching them watch us. I had to get rid of the people that I had in my life because I was not a leader back then at all. I was a follower. I was wanting to be accepted. And that's really, when I look back in my life, a large majority of every issue I've ever had was because I was people pleasing other people. I wanted to be accepted. That's all I cared about because I didn't love myself. I didn't feel like others loved me. Let's just say this, I was a chameleon. Didn't matter what group that I was with, I conformed or I adapted to that group and became who they were because I didn't have an identity myself. At this point, I had moved out of New Orleans. My dad, my grandfather helped me move out of New Orleans to at least remove myself geographically from the situation. I got a job, my first professional job as a loan originator for a mortgage company. From there, worked my way up to a territory sales manager for a large mortgage company based out of the DC area. So at this stage in my life, I'm doing quite well. I didn't graduate college, got the job, really excelled well. I mean, I really excelled. I put all my energy that I put into that other stuff into something legit, something legal. And that's where I got my first taste of the business world. And it was actually my first real professional job. And, started off as a loan originator, worked my way up to a territory sales manager. And then this is where everything kind of changed. My first true low point of my life. I left New Orleans with a debt that I had, and it was a friend of mine that I owed the debt to. He was the guy, let's just say that, the guy. And, he didn't care about the money that I owed him. He just wanted me to better my life. Let's just say that much. He was supportive of me moving. And actually, I'll be totally frank. Well, a lot of people probably say I'm crazy, but I'm still friends with that guy today. He ended up doing years in prison for what I'm getting ready to tell you guys about. And when he got out, I saw change in him. There was some things that happened where I knew he had changed, and I knew he was a good guy. So we're not like the closest friends or anything like that, but I don't just write people off unless they need to be written off. And there was a time where I just had to disassociate myself from just about everybody. So long story short, a guy starts calling me. He's like, hey, can I get your connection? Yada, yada, yada. I want to do this or I want to do that. And I was like, no, I don't do that anymore. And he was like, come on, man, just give me the guy's phone number. And about a dozen phone calls. And finally he broke down and called my office one day and spoke to my secretary and basically told the secretary what was going on. If Damien doesn't connect me with the guy, he goes, I'm never going to stop calling. So at that point in time, I was just like, I just need to get this guy off my back. And I connected two people on a phone call. And because I connected those two people on a phone call, and I told the party that I was speaking to on the call, hey, I'm going to connect you with this guy, just squash the debt that I have to you. Because that one sentence that I said right there, the DEA and the FBI told me they would have never They would have never indicted me. But because I was going to benefit from a drug transaction, then that's why I was involved. Because out of 13, I think it was like 13 to 1,500 pages of tap phone calls, my name came up once. That's it, just one time. And it was this one phone call that was recorded, and me setting the people up. And they knew that I had nothing to do with nothing at this point. At this point, it was 3 years after the fact. And the only reason why I didn't go to prison for as long as I could have was because right before my sentencing date, my attorney, who was my uncle, ended up finding a Supreme Court case where the guy who was going for a sentencing to the district court judge had removed himself from his environment and made an attempt to better his life. And the Supreme Court then allowed that district court judge to depart from the sentencing guidelines. And by departing from and federal judges hardly never do this, like hardly ever. When the feds get you, they got you. They don't waste time, surveillance, and it's like 97% conviction rate from what I remember. Once they come get you, they got enough information to put you away for a while. But I was very fortunate that my uncle, literally the night before my sentencing date, the night before, stayed up all night. He found the Supreme Court ruling. He approached the judge the next morning, and I ended up getting a 5-year suspended sentence and 5 years probation. So that was my first real low point in my life. Now you're faced with, you're a felon. Now you're faced with, all my dreams are gone. At least that's what I thought temporarily. And I just remember sitting in the federal probation office and, them having all the different things about jobs on the wall. And I just remember telling myself, I'm done. Like everything that I've ever wanted, everything that I ever dreamed of, everything, it's just over. And I was very fortunate because the people in the federal program, the probation officers, they're very highly educated people, at least at the federal level. They have to have a master's degree. I found that they were not out to get me. My probation officer, Darryl Knockan, made a huge impact in my life. He was one of the first people that introduced me to Christ. He was also one of the first people that showed me really tough love. Like I knew he cared about me. Mm-hmm. And, he of course, absolutely 100%. When I was going through that program, he held me accountable. And I wasn't used to being held accountable. I was living wild and free life. Nobody could tell me what to do. I mean, I left my house at 16 years old, actually. So, when you're running hard from 16 to 27 with no one telling you anything, and, you're on your own, it's tough now to then listen to somebody.
Well, let's talk about this real quick. You brought up a topic that is pretty big, and now I agree. You shouldn't have done what you did, and I get it. But at the same time, and we look at all the people who go to jail for crimes like that, or prison, I should say prison. I think it's ridiculous. When they clearly can see somebody is trying to rehabilitate. Now, does that mean that you should have done that? No, but prison seems pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It seems pretty crazy. Like we're putting people in prison where we should not be putting them in prison. There's alternate ways to handle it. Probation, yes, and all that.
I agree with that. But at the end of the day, it's for extreme ownership also.
It is.
I made the phone call. At the end of the day, I was surrounding myself with people that were drug dealers and drug smugglers and all these things. So yeah, it sounds very small for such a consequence, and forfeit, at the time I had to forfeit all my assets, my rights. Now my right to vote was never taken away from me because I was not sentenced to prison. When you're sentenced to jail, you lose those rights, but I've never lost my voting rights. Actually, some of my rights have been restored. So long story short, you just gotta not be that person to make excuses and look at everything and take full responsibility for everything and say, you know what? Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I got in trouble for a phone call. but I made the phone call.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah.
And okay, so I want to say this too. I'm 100% accountability. And I'm not saying that, but there are things that happen where there's extreme cases where we see that. And we did bring up President Trump, and I will bring him up quick.
People are in prison for marijuana. I mean, I did serve some time in prison, just so you know, between the time that they arrested my office to the time that I was to go see the judge. There was probably a couple months there that I was in the federal penitentiary system. And when you see the amount of people that are in there, the majority Black, for small things like marijuana, the system's definitely rigged, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying people shouldn't get in trouble for doing things. You should, but when we need to redo it, and I am a fan of the policies that Trump was doing on this. That it was really good, and I really supported that. And so I want to pivot real quick. You got in trouble. This wasn't the first, but this isn't the crash. We have a crash coming, don't we? Crash.
This was the first crash. Let's just say that much.
Let's get to the rock bottom, because I think that's where we need to go. We need to hit rock bottom. And I know that when I hit rock bottom, it was public. It was very public and very embarrassing. So let's talk about it.
I was very public too. So in the years of that I was in the probation system, I would say I did what I needed to do to get by. And I was learning at this time. I had started my network marketing career in 2007, which is the same year that I got 2008, which is the same year after I got sentenced, is when I went into network marketing, because I saw that there was not many opportunities out there for felons. And I just remember telling myself, I've got to figure out a way. I've got to figure out a way to where I can take the power back, where I'm not, because I remember going on like 150, and this is no exaggeration. I went like 150 job interviews, and not a single one called me back for a second interview, because I checked the box that I was a felon. Mm-hmm. So I initially felt that pain, and I knew that the only jobs that I was going to have to get, and I was applying for jobs in sales and things like that, but I knew that unless I wanted to become a laborer for the rest of my life, which there's nothing wrong with that, but at the end of the day, I had bigger goals than that. So for me, it was it was a time where I realized, in reality, smack dab in my face, and I had started some personal growth, and I had started some personal development, and I started to have people through the network marketing industry that believed in me. As a matter of fact, my first sponsors in my first network marketing company were all contributors to the book, The Secret. There's a lady named Laurel Langmeyer. Laurel's in the movie, The Secret. Don Duncan, who was her lead strategist and wealth builder for all their seminars. And so this entire camp of people that I was connected to, I just remember telling myself, I don't know what these people are doing, and I don't quite understand this business model, and I don't know much about much, but these people are making it happen. And I just remember that they all looked like they had it together. They were happy. They were just really excited about life. And I knew these were the type of people that I wanted to surround myself with. So initially, I got this initial period of growth, right? But of course, still hadn't dealt with the underlying issue. And the underlying issue, which goes back to, my childhood, of why I was doing the things that I was doing. So let's just say this: 4 DWIs later. One in Louisiana. No, I'm sorry. First one was in Louisiana. The second one was in Mississippi. The third one was in Florida. And the fourth one was back in Louisiana. The reason why I tell you guys is because an act of God happened next. This is where I live. There's no human explanation as to what happened next. So on my fourth DWI, I decided to put myself into a drug treatment center. And this was the time that I chose to go. This is the time that I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to kill somebody. I'm going to kill myself. And it was so easy for me to tell myself, you're not an addict. You're not this, you're not that. Because again, I could go a month or 2 months without using. I didn't do it every day. But the second I put one in, It was, I wanted to go harder than everybody, and I wanted to outdo everybody, and I wanted to do more dope than everybody.
Yep.
Like I took pride in, one of the little sayings that I used to have was, I'll put you to sleep on uppers. Like, you're not gonna. And I took things to the extreme, and I'm not here to glorify that at all. But I'm grateful to be alive right now, because of the things that I've done. I don't know how I'm still alive. So the fourth DWI happened, and I put myself in a drug treatment center at this point in time when I got out of jail. I went from New Orleans, which is where I was arrested for my fourth, to Florida in Okaloosa County, which is where Destin, Florida is. And then from there, when I got out, 3 months later, maybe, at that point, I had no condo, I had no car, I had no money, I had nothing but my luggage. And I was trying to get in. No, at this point, I was trying to get into the drug treatment centers when I got to Florida. This leads me to a really important story. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place.
You're good. You're good.
So when I got out of prison in Florida, I came back home to Louisiana with reality smacking me smack dab in my face. And I have nothing. And there needs to be changes. So I went into a drug treatment facility, the first one I got kicked out of. And when I got kicked out of that one, I had all my luggage, I had everything, and I was faced with the fact that I'm legitimately homeless. I have nowhere to go. Nobody wants me. They're tired of my shit. And at this stage, finally, my parents and finally everybody around me stopped enabling me. And they realized that I had to fall flat on my face. And that's what happened. What happened next was there was a 4-day period of me just kind of floating around. Let's just say that much. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any money, no cars, no nothing. And I remember walk to a church, and this church was an African-American church, and I knew the pastor there. And I was hoping to see him, and he was out of town. And I did talk to him on the phone. I told him, I was like, Pastor, can you get me into a hotel room for one night so I can figure this out and get myself in a drug rehabilitation? And he got me into a hotel. It was on the Ramada Hotel in Metairie, Louisiana, on the I-10 South Service Road. And what happened was I went to that hotel to commit suicide. I said I was going to figure things out, but I was just so down on myself that in my head, I was going to end it all. When all you have is your luggage, you have nothing else. Only have one night in a hotel. It doesn't take long for reality to sit in. Then you're about to be again tomorrow. That one night really didn't do anything. In my mind, I'm like, oh, why did I even do this? Get a taste of a bed. And the next day, all these mind games are playing. I remember reaching out to a guy through the AA program. And I saw that this guy cared about people. I saw that he was tough with people. And I knew I needed somebody who could see through my bullshit.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed somebody that was going to look me in my face and call me a dog when I was a dog. That wasn't going to allow me to feed him any bullshit. That's just the easiest way I could put it. I remember calling Paul up, and I think I'd only met with him a couple times. And I said, hey, man, I need your help. And he said, good. Well, let's get one thing straight first. I'm not your fucking friend. If you want my help, he goes, you have to do 100% of what I'm going to tell you to do. Otherwise, you don't have my help. And the first thing he told me that if you call anyone after this phone call and ask them to help you in any way, shape, or form, to come save you, to bring you somewhere, to do anything, he said, you lost my help. And I wanted his help because I knew he had at the time like 15 or 20 years sober, multi-millionaire, making it happen big time in his life. And then also pouring into people like me and during his off time. And I admired that. So I said, so what do I do? He said, Damien, when are you going to realize your thinking, your decision-making is skewed and it's flawed? Because your choices and decisions have you being arrested 20-something times in your life, just in a really bad right now. He goes, so can we agree that your thinking does not work? I said, well, it's pretty obvious. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you to do something. And he goes, it's your choice whether you do it or not. He goes, you need to submit, man. He goes, you need to submit. And I'm like, what do you mean submit? He said, you know what I mean. Submit your will to Christ. And Paul knew that I came from that background. He wouldn't normally probably mention Christ. He would probably talk about a God of your understanding, but he knew that Christ was,
what you identified. I think it's important when people hear this, and this. So I'm just, for our listeners and our audience, it doesn't matter what we're trying to say. We're saying higher power, something bigger than yourself. You need to have that belief. And we talked about this yesterday, because a lot of people will struggle with this. And it's not that we're telling you have to go to church and believe in religion. What we're saying, yeah, you don't. It's about what's inside of here. There's a bigger thing. There's something bigger, and you have to.
The church is outside. The church is in the street. The church is on the bridges. Go and talk to the homeless people. This is church. You and I talking right now.
Yeah. It's super important, because what people don't understand about, so I grew up with organizations all my life that were supposed to help. And I had parents and friends, and I've never saw anyone get help. So I never believed in it. So a lot of people are in that boat, because they all know somebody who went to this or that treatment or this, and they failed, right? And my brother said it perfect. He goes, the reason you struggled with it for so long to actually submit is because you never knew somebody who actually did it. I told you yesterday, you can shake the tree and there's alcoholics falling everywhere. Oh, there they are. And so it's for people to understand that this is a power that's inside you that's bigger than the universe. This is what is giving you all the things. This is what provides abundance and love and joy. And until you experience it, it's hard to explain. But I want to encourage people, submitting isn't walking into a church. Submitting is giving yourself to that higher power and saying, I freaking need you, and I can't do this anymore the way I'm doing this, and I am not in control, and the way I fucking think is not right, and I am not right. Like, it's like saying drop your ego, drop it all. So it's so important to have that message today. So keep going. I love this. And okay, so
you had approached me about Christ, which I had been approached, and there's a man that's very pivotal alongside of Paul. And his name's Jack. Jack used to always come to me about Christ, right? And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that conversation. So I ran from Jack. Jack, I never wanted to talk to Jack, because I knew what Jack was trying to talk to me about.
Yeah.
So just my timing wasn't right. So I kind of always knew deep down inside, even when I was using drugs, even when I was watching the sunset come up, cringing and hating the way it felt, because I was coming down.
Yeah.
I always knew that Christ was going to be the answer for me. Now, I'm just speaking of me. And again, whatever your conception of the higher power is fine for you. But for me, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Mm-hmm. So had it not been for me being as broke down as I was, I would not have been open to any of this. So he just said, when are you going to submit your will? And in my mind, the first thing I thought was, you're not coming to pick me up. You're not going to take me to the Social Security office to get my Social Security card. I just need a ride. I'm just trying to get into rehab. And here I'm like self-pity mode. I'm like, okay, so like, fuck you. Like, you said you were going to help me. Now you're telling me you're not my friend. You're telling me I need to submit. You're telling me all this stuff. I'm like, I just need to go get a card, like a Social Security card, so I can get into rehab. That's all I needed. And he said, well, he goes, I am helping you. He goes, you can walk there. And I was like, walk there? It's like 7-8 miles away. He said, I don't care. You'll figure it out. So this guy was really, really hardcore with me. And I remember when he got off the phone, I was so mad at him, because he was really that direct, and he was pushing all the right buttons with me. And He was. We're still very close to this day. And I remember, like, right after we got off the phone, I literally dropped to my knees, and man, I get goosebumps even thinking about it still to this day. Um, and it wasn't a poor, pitiful me. Hey, I'm in trouble. Please help. It was what Shylo just said. It was I don't even know how to do this anymore. I don't trust the way I think. I don't trust any decision that I make. Lord, I need you to go before me and handle all of these challenges. Open the right doors for me. Just point me in the direction. I'm ready. Fill me up. Just show me. And that's kind of an act of submission, just saying, I don't even know what to do. And then like immediately after that prayer, not a nanosecond after that, the first thought in my mind was commit suicide. And it was like, I was aware that was the enemy attacking me too. Like I knew I had just got on my knees and prayed, probably the first genuine prayer I've prayed in my life. And because I've always been that person that, only prayed when things were bad, and,
Right.
It did no relationship whatsoever. It was just all about me. It was very selfish. So at that point in time, it was like this other, I don't want to say, I didn't really hear a voice, but it was like this subconscious thing. Like, I guess it was kind of like an inner, I didn't hear a voice, but it was kind of like my inner voice, and said, you're not going to do that. You're not going to kill yourself. And then I got into solution mode, like right away. Well, all right, what do I need to do? Okay, great. I need to grab all my luggage, and I need to go talk to a lady at the front desk and see, can I store my luggage here? And I'm just going to walk to the Social Security office. I was going to do exactly what Paul said to do. So when I got downstairs to that hotel where I was originally, planning on committing suicide, tears rolling down my eyes, I got to the front desk and asked to speak to the general manager immediately. Like, this is where everything changed. This is my first spiritual experience, I believe, because we have a spiritual sickness, and the only solution to that spiritual sickness is a spiritual solution. A lot of people think the drugs and alcohol, the problem. It's not. It's how we deal with the problem.
Right.
The problem is that we have a spiritual sickness. So at this point, I went and literally talked to this lady, and I'm crying as hard as anybody can cry. I couldn't even hardly speak. And the first out of her mouth was, she goes, honey, dude, I don't know what's going on with you. She goes, but I know this. She goes, God sent me to you. I swear to you, that was when I just knew right away, like something was about to change. Something good was going to happen. So then she gave me $80 cash. I still talk to her once a year on my sobriety date and let her know I'm still sober. I took that $80, took a cab ride to the Social Security office, got my Social Security card, came back the next day. Came back later that night, gave her change back. She wouldn't take it back. She told me to go get something to eat. And then I got into it. She gave me another night actually in the hotel for free. She comped it. And then I went to rehab the next day.
This year, so my journey thus far, there has been people that have been placed in front of me. You are one, but every time I'm going through something big or small, somebody will call me, somebody I haven't talked to or message me, and I'll be like, what's this? And it's from God. And there's a lot of times people will say, hey, God said to say this. There's times where it's straight up, and there's times where you just know because you prayed and it was instantly, it was right there. You're like, there it is. But you have to be paying attention.
Like when you're like literally thinking about suicide, and all of a sudden you're playing these mind games with yourself, and then you collapse on your knees, and then that was enough for me to go, okay, something's going on here. Like good stuff. And what's happened since then has just been a true blessing, man. My life's completely blessed. Trust me, it's been rough. Last 7 years haven't been. Life is a roller coaster, and life's going to happen to everybody, and it's not any different for me than it is for anybody else. We're all going to deal with life. So it's how you deal with what happens, not what happens to you. So I don't want to sit here and say that everything has been completely blessed and my life's been peachy keen for the last 7 years, because a lot of it has. But at the same time, there's been some super tough moments in those periods of time. But now that I have a relationship with my creator, and now that I have a spiritual foundation, and I have really amazing people in my life that are on the same path as me, it's made it a whole lot easier now to have those conversations with others that are going through the same thing, and then we kind of share our strength with each other. So I went to rehabilitation the day I did my first live video ever, and I knew that by me putting it out there publicly,
How much longer do you have?
watching me, it was my way of holding myself accountable. Let's just say that much. So I put it out there to the world that I was going to a drug rehabilitation center. And I put it out there to the world that I've been hiding this for a long time. And that, at this time, I was in network marketing for probably 3 or 4 years. And I felt like a fraud because I was telling everybody else how to live their life and telling everybody else, how to do this and how to do that. Yet I wasn't taking care of my own self. So I felt like a fraud, and I needed to come out and go into drug treatment center I thought it was a clean slate. So I cut this really heartfelt video and just exposed everything, like everything. It was still to this day, the hardest video I've ever done in my life was that video. But I just remember, because of one of the network marketing companies that I was in, they used to talk about going public with your goals. So I took that lesson I learned from network marketing and said, okay, I'm gonna expose my baggage. I'm gonna expose everything, and I can't fail. There's no room to fail now. They all know, and I told her, I'm gonna watch this comeback story, and I'm gonna document it every day, and I'm going to tell the story, and that's what I've done. And ever since, that's just the story that I've been telling. So
it's incredible. It's incredible. That's the story. I mean, it's a comeback story, the underdog story. Like I have a group. It's called the Comeback Queens. I just launched it. You can be a comeback queen. I know you're a comeback king. But it's important because I didn't document it the same way, but I definitely let people see the journey, because everyone saw me fall. They saw me fall, and I think a lot of people thought, she's out. She is done. Like, there's no coming back from this. And that was one of my drivers, because I'm like, yes, I can, because I know a lot of people, especially in my life, who need to see this story. They need to see me do this.
I thought that too. I honestly thought that, because it was, I need to do it for me. All right, so let me take a step back. I remember being in the probation office, okay? And this is actually something that 2022 is going to happen too, by the way. I remember sitting in that probation office, just thinking my life's over. It's done. There's no goals, there's no dreams, no hope anymore.
Right.
That's a real feeling for a lot of people that are convicted felons, that are just coming out of some type of recovery program, or there's not much belief there in oneself at that stage of the game. So it took for other people to believe in me, the Don Duncans, the Laurel Langmeyers, Paul, my buddy Jack, my mom. It took for a lot of people, because just about everybody turned their back on me except for my network marketing friends and my immediate family. And even a lot of them turned their back on me and kicked me when I was down, but that's okay. But I just knew that I had to go do this. And I had to do this not just for me, because I wanted to spend the rest of my life pouring into another guy that was in the same situation, because I just remember I didn't believe in me, but I believed in the people that believed in me. Because I believed in them, I was able to build my belief day by day, a little bit at a time. There's a book by, I forget the author's name. It's James Clear, actually. It's called Atomic Habits. It's about making 1% changes every day. Everybody's looking to make this dramatic change, right? And that's not how it works. How do you eat the elephant one bite at a time? And it's and that's the thing that I really started to learn, is that it's just day to day. You got to get better. Day to day, you got to, continuously be looking at the people that you have in your life. Are they adding value to you? Are they sucking energy out of your life? Or are they adding value to your life? And at this stage, when I decided to just completely clear my slate of everybody I was hanging with, I knew that I was going to build a really solid inner circle. And I was really cautious as to who I let in. I was really cautious to who I let around me, even. And there was a period of time where I had to cut some of my immediate family off because they were so negative about a lot of things. They were chopping me down because I was trying the network marketing thing, and a lot of them didn't support a lot of things that I did. But now, I would say that my family is very proud of me, and well, some of them are. There's some of them that like, so yeah, it's just a matter of taking massive freaking action, man. At the end of action solves all problems. And what you got to realize is this: you're God's highest form of creation. You're God's highest form of creation. I tell you that only to tell you this, because if you can truly identify with that, and if you can truly believe that, and you truly understand, man, you got the spiritual DNA of the creator of everything running through your body. And literally. And if you do that, you can come from a place of power, you can come from a place of strength, and you can come from a place of knowing that you have a birthright to prosperity and abundance. You have a birthright to, just abundance. Let's just say that much. We're not meant to live scarce lives. We're not meant to live the way that people are living right now. And most people are living far beneath their potential. Most people are tapping into 20% of their potential because they're letting the past weigh them down. The only thing that matters, Shylo, is right here, right now, you and I are speaking. That's all we have. Yep. That's it. There's nothing else that matters. There's nothing in my past that can hurt me. It's only the meaning that it has is the meaning that you assign to it. And that's the beautiful part, is when you can realize all this stuff. And I would never have been able to realize this had it not been for, the network marketing industry, my entrepreneurial journey, and all this stuff, and personal development, the seminars. And the best investment I've ever made is the investment in myself. Period. End of story. I don't care how much crypto you got. I don't care how much real estate you got.
Yeah.
None of that matters, because at the end of the day, it's up to your investment in yourself. And if you're not willing to invest in yourself, trust me, other people will not do it.
Exactly. Well, I think your story, your word, everything, your message is perfect for today. Obviously, this is why we're on here. Being present, y'all, like thinking about stories like this. When I look at people like Damien, I think of, everybody's like, you got to go through the struggle and you got to go through this. I think it's the journey. Yes, there's pain. You're always going to have pain. And we talk about this a lot. There's always going to be pain, but you also decide that pain, and some of us, we want to go through the pain because we're in pain. And why we go through these journeys is something triggered you to start that journey. Something happened. You were in pain. You found something that led you to more pain, but it took away the pain for a moment. And then those moments kept happening. I remember when I fell, and we're going to end this rapid because I want to talk about your organization and what you do. I hadn't been drinking for weeks, almost months, until I screwed up. So it's not this everyday deal all the time. It's not these people hanging out on the streets and like, that's not it all the time. It's very highly successful, motivated people who are hiding and numbing pain that they just don't want to deal with. And after a while, you forget about the original reason why you're doing it. You don't even remember. You're just freaking doing it to be whatever, a different person, to be a liar, basically. And I remember when I had to fully come to reality with myself, I was lying to everyone. I wasn't a good friend. I thought I was the best friend in the world. Then I thought about it. I'm like, they don't even know who I am, because I got this other version of me sitting in the bedroom, drowning myself, watching TV, passing out, doing all this stuff. I'm like, nobody sees that. And then I push everyone away. I'm getting in fights with people. Like, it just got so bad where I'm like, I don't even recognize my damn self. I didn't. I was looking in the mirror in a hotel room, just like you, ready to be done. I'm like, I don't recognize this woman. I'm not proud of this woman. I was going to kill myself at a company event. And something stopped me. And instead of doing what I was going to do, I grabbed my phone, changed my flight, and I left in the middle of an event. And I'm like, I'm out. I got to go home. I've got to get.
Without going through all that, you wouldn't be able to say what you say today now that you look in the mirror.
Right. Exactly.
Today.
Exactly. So let's talk about your foundation. You were recognized by President Trump in a
Real,
State of
real
the
quick.
Union. Yeah.
I literally learned this from Sean Whalen. Okay.
Okay.
When I look at myself in the mirror now, I'm forced to tell myself, "You're a fucking badass."
It's true.
Well, no, I say you're a fucking badass, and I love you. But I always tell myself I love me. I never used because I didn't love me
No.
today. But today I can sit here and look back through all the pain, look back through all that stuff. And I think a lot of people try to avoid the pain. My advice is go through the pain, but go through it with people that have been there before. So I wanted to insert that little part is, you know, it used to be, I used to literally not be able to look in the mirror. I used to hate what I saw in the mirror. And today when I look in the mirror, I legitimately tell myself, and there's actually an exercise that I do every day for about 3 to 5 minutes where I tell myself over and over and over, "You're a fucking badass. I love you. You're a fucking badass. I love you." Then I read a long affirmation to myself in the mirror.
It's so true. People have to do that. The I am statements, affirmations. I'm big on that. I always have been. But I used to put myself through pain, tattooing, plastic surgery. Not that I had the types of things I would do to myself there was pain, but at least I was controlling it. If I could control the pain, then the pain that was always there, it was like it was numbing it that way too. It was really crazy. I did a lot of stuff where I'm like, this isn't healthy. Like I have to really truly love who I am. And now I can, but you have to go through it, but you're always going to have pain. Life's painful. We are human beings. We are made to feel pain. And the challenge is no matter how hard it gets, rush toward it, get it over with. Be the first one if you have to get it over with, but get it over with and feel it, process it and heal it, and you'll be okay. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about your foundation and what you're doing.
Yeah. So this is a bittersweet story, actually. I'm going to tell you guys this up front. You know, there is a group called the Cajun Navy that was recognized by the people of Louisiana for Hurricane Katrina. And it was not an organized group back then, but it was what the people called everyone who was out rescuing people during Katrina. They were known as the Cajun Navy. Now, during that time, again, there was no organization to really just about anything that they did. It was what the public was referring to anybody who was in a boat. So let's fast forward. That was Hurricane Katrina. About 8-9 years later, there's the worst flood in American history, which was 2016, August 13th, 2016. And that flood came out of nowhere. It was just a tropical depression. It wasn't even a hurricane. It just sat there for days upon days upon days and flooded about a 100-mile radius. Let's just say it was the biggest flood our country's ever seen still to this day. So at this point in time, I'm about 6 to 8 months sober. I'm not 100% sure the exact time. And myself and a guy that I knew that I met from the network marketing industry, actually Lane and I decided we wanted to go volunteer. Now, I did not own a boat at this time. Okay. So what ended up happening was we went to a parking lot. We heard a rumor of a bunch of volunteers going to a Home Depot parking lot to rendezvous with people that had boats, and we were going to go out and rescue folks. Well, when we got to this parking lot, there was about 40, 50 people were there, and there was nobody with boats that showed up. So there was a gentleman by the name of Chris Clark. Chris was in the crowd. He had drove like 23 hours from Utah to try to make it to his house before the neighborhood flooded really badly. He had a 4 and a 5-year-old that was stuck in a house with a babysitter, and he couldn't get within 8 miles of his children. So I saw the plight, and I just saw this man was like, he was crying, and he had a New Orleans Saints hat on. So naturally, I was drawn to him because he was crying and he had a Saints hat on. So I walked up to him like, "Hey man, what's going on? Is there anything I can help you with?" And that's when he broke down in tears and told me about his children's being stuck in a home. And I said, "Look, I got a pretty good social media following, and I kind of understand social media. And I said, I'm willing to bet that if I can use your story to tell on social media, I can get some boats here." And I had no idea what was getting ready to happen was going to happen. I mean, I knew I'd be able to find us some boats. but didn't know that we were going to start the first ever organized Cajun Navy group. So we did a video titled "We Need Boats," and I'm simply interviewing Chris. And then out of the corner of my eye at a gas station in Baton Rouge, I saw there was a gentleman who was actually an attorney. And this time I didn't know any of this stuff, but we called him our Good Samaritan. He was at the gas station fueling up his boat to put it in the water to go out and rescue. And I told Lane, literally while I'm videoing this guy, I'm like, go get him. Like, I'm pointing to the gas, like, go get that guy. So Lane bolts over there. I'm, interviewing Chris. And all these videos are still available, actually, if you just go to Facebook and just type in Cajun Navy, we need boats, I think it pops up. So it got millions of views, and my phone number was on that video. So my phone number. So at this time, this is when Trump and Hillary were going back and forth with each other. They were not giving this the time of day in the news media because at this point, it just hadn't gotten as bad as it ended up getting. During a flood, the worst part is during a storm, the worst part is usually a couple days later when all the rivers crest, and then that's where the massive flooding happens. So the worst part hadn't even happened yet, but we did a call to action. That video got hundreds of, not hundreds, millions of views. I think we got like 11 million views, something like that. I'm not sure where it stands at. Actually, the original one got deleted. I had to repost a recording of it. But what ended up happening was that my phone number was on that video, and there were so many people contacting me saying, we got boats from here. We're coming from, we had people from Colorado willing to drive down boats. I mean, this was an all out call for help. It was dire. There was tens of thousands of people that were we got a call from one neighborhood. There was nothing but elderly people that were, out of electricity. They didn't have any of their ventilators, their meds, and they were on day 3 or 4 with nothing. And the federal government just moves too slow. So by us doing that call to action, we were able to put thousands of boats in the water that day. We rescued, I don't even know how much, because back then we weren't even really tracking them. But I know right now, as a whole, it's over 40,000 people that Cajun Navy has rescued in a bunch of different storms. Now, I do want to make a disclosure here. I am the original collaborator and the original person that started the first ever organized Cajun Navy group. Now there's 11, 12, 13, I don't even know how many. There's a lot of different Cajun Navy groups right now. We're not all the same. Okay. So I personally resigned from my own group because it became too much about titles and about getting in front of cameras. And because of the amount of press that we got, I found another group that I identified with better. That was a Christian-based group, and I found that these guys did it for the right reasons. They prayed before we did the thing. And so future storms, after the original storm, and with the group that was started from my original group, we just didn't see eye to eye, and our vision wasn't the same. So I've been partnered with another group. I am not at all involved in the day-to-day operations anymore of any of these groups, but to be the catalyst behind all of it, the person that shed light on it, because of the amount of people that reached out, we were putting somebody together that was able to bring technology and systems to everything. And then how we did everything was, there was so much information coming through my phone that I had to literally give my phone to somebody and say, I need you to do something with this. I can't even handle this. It was every second somebody was calling me, texting me, Messenger, all this stuff. So we started a Facebook group where we can channel all that information into. And then we set up admins. Within 48 hours, we had a group in Silicon Valley, California, who put together an app where we were able to check as calls were coming in, we're stuck here, we're stuck there. We were able to populate a map to where we weren't crisscrossing each other, because the first 72 hours, it was mayhem. Imagine this. Imagine a city. Mm-hmm. The signs, everything in that city underwater, and you got to drive a boat in that. Mm-hmm. So we were running up on top of cars, putting holes in boats, and we realized really quickly you couldn't use a fiberglass boat. That was one of the things we learned really quickly. We had to go to aluminum boats really quickly. quickly. So we learned the hard way, and every day it got better. And as we brought on more people with different expertise, and we had military guys come in, we had people with first responders. So I was really just the initial catalyst that sparked the whole movement. Call myself like the founder, because there's a lot of different founders, a lot of different groups. But I was the person that originally reignited the whole movement through my videos. And yes, President Trump addressed the Cajun Navy in the State of the Union address as American heroes. But I'll just tell you this: Cajun Navy to me means a couple things. Cajun Navy is an example of what our country can be like. Think about this. During the time of this flood was the time that Alden Sterling was murdered by the police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that was a situation personally where I could not take the police back on this particular one. I'd do back the blue 100%. Yeah. But in this situation, it was a poor judgment. And you have the city divided amongst color lines. Yeah. 2 weeks later, you have an outside instigator who came in and murdered 3 police officers, one of which was a friend of mine, was a customer of mine in Baton Rouge and Montreal, actually. But there was 3 police officers murdered, and then the week after that, the storm happened. So I'm going to make a point here. In the time of chaos and tragedy, I mean, we've rescued people now in five different states that I've personally responded to. 4 different states, sorry. In all these situations, in all these times of tragedy and times of turmoil and times of natural disaster, the labels go away.
Yep.
Nobody cares about Democrat, Republican, Catholic, Buddhist, Black, white. None of that matters. So to me, whenever I was always interviewed about the Cajun Navy, I said, what does it mean to you? I said, it means that we can show the world what this is supposed to be like. In a time of tragedy, in time of crisis, we go back to being who we are. And as human beings, we're not taught to hate. Well, we are taught to hate. We're not born with that ingrained in us. We're taught hate. So the labels and everything just disappears. So it's like, how do we stay in that place? How do we stay in that place of loving each other and taking care of each other? Because that's what the American spirit is, in my opinion. So Cajun Navy is an example of what this country could be like. Because in a time of crisis, in a time of tragedy, the citizens stepped up to help each other. The government was still thinking about it and scratching their head, trying to figure out what to do. And actually, almost the entire way throughout this entire process, that first storm, they literally tried to stop us from helping, to the point where I had to get on TV in one of my live videos, tag every news station in the state of Louisiana, the governor's office, the state police's office. And I told them that if they don't give us a police escort, then I would continue to call them out. And then I ended up getting a call from the governor's office telling me to stand down. I said, obviously you don't know who you're talking to, because I'm not standing down. And there's nothing that you could do that's going to tell me to stand down. So either you help us and work with us, or work against us, and I'll keep calling you out publicly. So exactly. Literally the next day, they started putting a police officer on every boat with us. Like literally every boat that we sent out had an officer on it. So, which was good. So yeah, it's a bittersweet thing, because throughout the process of Cajun Navy and putting yourself out there like that, there's a lot of people that want to assassinate your character. There's a lot of people that want to play keyboard gangster, or there's a lot of people that are just jealous because you're out there doing something that they wish they could be doing, or something they know they should be doing and for whatever reason aren't, yet they want to chop you down. So, they pulled up my rap sheet, and they pulled up me in pictures in jumpsuits and literally assassinated my character like you wouldn't believe. And it hurt. It really hurt. And that was the first taste that I had of how cold this world can be when you're legitimately out there trying to help and you're rescuing people and they're chopping you down. So I actually resigned as the leader of my own organization to save the organization, what I thought was some drama. But so it's a little bittersweet, because you're out there helping, and just people were just they were just tearing me down like you wouldn't believe. So I stayed away from the organization for about a year. And then it was just the next hurricane season came and another bad hurricane happened. I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. And now I've responded to 7 different hurricanes, and we've done a lot of good stuff. So the only Cajun Navy group that I support nowadays, who I know 100% does it right, all the money donated to that group is put to a good cause. It's in the hands of very trustworthy people. Is Cajun Navy 2016.org. They are the group that was invited to the White House. As a matter of fact, I met with the president multiple times. John Bridgers is the leader of that group. Him and his wife Lori are amazing people. So those people I consider family nowadays. So a little bit of the Cajun Navy story, but it just again, it boils down to taking massive action. Mm-hmm. It's all massive action. Massive action solves all problems. I'm not a guy that can sit back on the sidelines and watch people drown or die or not do nothing. Just like the country, the way it is right now. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to sit by and just say nothing. I'm not going to sit here to go the way it's going to go and then not do nothing about it. I'm a man of action, and I highly encourage all of you to get involved. I highly encourage all of you to speak your piece. I highly encourage all of you to do not comply.
Well, a rising tide raises all ships. Yeah. And we all have to, I think what happens, and as we wrap up, and we're going to put your links in here, everyone can find Damien on social. We have his links. We've got it dropped. One of the things that you're saying is, we have to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. That's one of my mottos in life. I also ran for Hurricane Harvey. I came down to Texas with a group of people and we gave back, and it was a really incredible experience. But I definitely have a passion for that type of stuff. And I was watching people from all over the country. Same with 9/11. We watched our country finally take a breath together and stop screaming at each other, and we came together. It was the best. I mean, it's not the best time, but when these tragedies happen, it's when you actually see what America is about, and that's really important to me. And I really am passionate about who we are. I'm passionate about America. I'm passionate about what we can be, and I know that we are, in my opinion, not doing things the best, and we need to say things, yes. But as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to Damien Callais. You are incredible. Your story is incredible. Everyone had to hear this. Your message is great. I love you. We'll be friends forever because we just share so much.
Everybody is looking to move to Florida. Make sure you guys hit me up. I now have a real estate business down in Florida. Okay. I absolutely love it down here, and that's my new passion. My new passion is now that I'm back into real estate, which was my first career choice. It's